Hello and welcome back to my channel. Now, before you get all, you know, the way the internet does, just remember that love is a many splendid thing and fictitious characters are not directly affected by my thoughts. Just bear that in mind. Now, we've all got our own little ships. I appreciate that sometimes when someone writes a romance, or it's not a romance, or it just has like a couple elements in it, that you're just like, oh my god, kiss. I fully comprehend that. Sometimes, like me, you realise that you are fully sailing this ship by yourself. No one else even considered that as a possibility, and now that you've mentioned it, they're like, I hate that. I fully intend this video to be that. For me, I mean, I haven't looked into the fan fiction of it because honestly I think it could be a spirally slope into hell. But regardless, I think these couples would work. And I'm pretty sure you're gonna hate all of my responses. So these are my ships that I will happily just sail by myself if I have to, because clearly I have to. So let's start with obvious ones. Pride and Prejudice, the classic, the ultimate in romance, blah, 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 blah. I know that Mr. Collins has to end up with, what's her face, Charlotte Lucas, because you've got like rival families. But just imagine for a second, and I also appreciate this is probably the tamest of all the ones I'm going to mention today. Just appreciate for a second what would happen if, instead of with Charlotte Lucas, he ended up with Mary, the hyper-religious Mary, the superior, higher than thou Mary. Just consider it for a second. Now, Jane Austen was very, very good at rarely pitting siblings against each other outside of just like embarrassing themselves, and that's probably because she had a great relationship with her siblings. But just imagine Pride and Prejudice for a second. Whilst Jane and Lizzie are dealing with Lydia and Kitty just being Lydia and Kitty, but specifically the Lydia and Wickham thing, over in the other corner is Mary married to Mr. Collins. Now, Mr. Collins basically cuts all ties with the family the moment he finds out that Lydia has run away with Mr. Wickham. Imagine for a second Mary also cuts all ties with her family. Imagine the conflict that would brew from that. This girl who has been constantly shunned by her sisters is now able to shun them. Imagine the response to that kind of conflict. I think that would make for a more interesting read. And I'm not saying that I can tell Jane Austen how to do her job, but I'm just saying that I think that couple would have worked and would have made for a more interesting conflict. Charlotte Lucas is just a bit of a wet flannel, and I don't really care about her. So when she runs off with Mr. Collins, I'm like, I get it. And also, the older I get, the more the speech from the 2005 version just rings home.
I'm 27 years old. I've no money and no prospects. I'm already a burden to my parents. And I'm frightened.
Like, it's upsetting how accurate to my life that comment is. So we'll just pretend Charlotte Lucas doesn't exist. Stick Mary in instead. Job done. We'll stick with Jane Austen because why the fuck not? Sense and Sensibility. Now, maybe it's because I watched the 1990s version that had Emma Thompson and Alan Rickman in it, and they have like always been best friends, and then they played a married couple one time in Love Actually, and even that marriage was fraught, which I just think is fucking rude. Maybe that's it, but I think Eleanor Dashwood, the oldest of the three siblings, and Colonel Brandon would just be the perfect couple. The perfect couple. I appreciate that she's got her stuff with Henry Farris going on. Henry Farris is a simp and a himbo, and she can do so much better, and yeah, he's got money and blah 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 blah, but I just didn't like it. I just didn't like it. Sense and Sensibility is my favourite of all the Jane Austen novels, and yeah, I cannot get over how much I dislike Henry Farris. He's just pathetic. He gets duped into being engaged to someone and then is like really socially awkward about it and isn't just fucking honest. And it's the classic miscommunication trope, and I hate that. But just imagine that Eleanor finds out about the reason that Colonel Brandon is so protective of her sister is because he has seen what's happened with Willoughby before, and he feels the need to protect her. There's nothing more than that. There's no sexual interest. He just wants to protect her. And considering that has been her life goal, is to protect her silly sisters and her silly mother from doing silly things, and then she finds someone who has the same mutual goal as her and understands her and will love her, and just, yes, Eleanor and Colonel Brandon. They deserve to be together happily ever after. I want that for me. I'm sure there's a fic of it somewhere. I haven't found it. I haven't really looked, to be honest. But it was one of those things where when I was thinking about couples that I would want to see, that I have not yet seen, in ships that will not sail themselves. Inej and Nina, the ultimate power couple, let's be honest, because I get they're best friends, and I get they're platonic, and I fucking love a platonic female friendship. Love that. But both of them can do better than a stuck-up little... Both of them have been partnered with men that are, frankly, shit. And I just wanted them to just kiss and just hold each other and just take care of each other and make each other feel good, because I think that's the least they both fucking deserve. And no, I haven't watched the TV series recently where everyone is in love with the characters as they are. No, I haven't, because I'm still hung up on this and I don't want to write the fic, but I will if I have to. I just think they'd be really cute, and also like an absolute power like, to be fair, those two and Jesper, you don't need any of the other crows. You don't need any of them. Just those three. Absolute powerhouse. All by themselves. My thoughts on Six of Crows in general, I guess. Something else that I want to make gay for the sake of making it gay is Bram Stoker's Dracula. Now, in the opening scenes of Bram Stoker's Dracula, we see Jonathan Harker travel across Transylvania to Dracula's castle in the middle of fucking nowhere. And then the rest of the book is Dracula tracing his girlfriend. Jonathan Harker's girlfriend, not Dracula's girlfriend. Why? I love Nina, but why? I appreciate that probably when the time this was written it wasn't okay to be gay, so blah blah blah. But imagine, just imagine if instead of chasing Nina, he chased Jonathan Harker. That he came back to London for Jonathan, that after spending their little weekend away, he was like, I just, you know, can't get enough of you. Whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just think it would be really cool, and just... Jonathan Harker is such a himbo that it would just be so great to see him being chased by this malevolent force of darkness that wants to turn him into his, you know, fellow malevolent force of darkness. And then they kiss. Like, I just think it would be great. And I don't want you to think that I'm fetishizing gay relationships. In this instance, I kind of am, but I just think it would be great. I just think it would be great. Plus, Dracula is definitely pansexual. Like, I can't imagine a being that has lived that long. I mean, he basically, like, he has dinner with Jonathan Harker every night. He, like, takes care of him. Like, don't tell me there's no subtext there. Sometimes, subtext can become text. I think that's the retelling that I'm going to write next. I think that's... It's got to happen. I've said it now. I've said it out loud. I just think it'd be great. Two sweet BBs that desperately deserve to be loved is Seji and Bobby in Fence. Seji is caught up in a kind of like rivals to lovers sexual tension thing with someone else. I appreciate that. But again, hear me out, for a slight change, Bobby is also in a very comfortable semi-relationship with their roommate, which I also appreciate. But Seji is only ever treated with respect once he has shown his prowess at fencing, which, to be fair, he's fantastic. He's like the best there ever was, blah 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 blah. I get that. Bobby is immediately impressed with him because of that. Whereas the person who is his rival to lover, I can't even remember the guy's name, that's embarrassing. I think it's Nick. Oh yeah, Nicholas. So I appreciate that he has this whole rival thing going with Nicholas, and Nicholas has to learn that Seji is amazing at fencing and that he's shit at fencing before he can actually have some respect for Seji. I get that, but that is all Seji has ever had, is people just respecting him for his fencing. Imagine if someone who was just sweet and wholesome just loved him for who he was. For the stuff outside of fencing. Plus, who doesn't love a tiny softball with a tall angry ball? I just think it would be really cute. I just think it's what Seji deserves. And I feel like Bobby could be that for him. That's just my thoughts. Okay, this is one of the ones that I am just going to have to say on myself, and I get that. There are several great characters in Skulltula Pleasant. This is a middle grade murder mystery type book that I'm currently doing a read along for, so check that out. But there are two female characters in this that just, if they got together, would just rule the fucking world. You've got China Sorrows, who is this witch who can use symbols to manipulate people. She often gets people, like, she seduces people into just giving her shit. She's very manipulative. She's very morally grey. You never know what her choice is going to be. Very feminine, very soft looking, but cruel as fuck. Then you have Tanith Lowe, who is your classic British thug. She's in her 80s, but she looks about 16 years old. She is a sword fighter. She is a brawler. She's very intelligent. and is definitely, like, she drives a motorbike, she wears leather, she's just a badass. Just imagine for a second. Just imagine it for a second. Those two coming together to rule the world. I would love that. It won't ever happen because this is a middle grade that was written years ago. So I know it's not going to happen. Just imagine if it did. Imagine if that ship finally sailed itself and it wasn't just me carrying it. Like, I would love that for me. But it won't happen. But I'd love it to happen, but it won't happen. Another one I want to discuss for conflict's sake. Taryn and Dane. This is not the first one, this is just the one that I had to hand, so I grabbed it. In the first Cruel Prince book, Taryn betrays her sister by making out and then marrying the same guy that her sister Jude has been making out with. Sorry for the spoiler alert, if you haven't read it now, you're probably not going to. Imagine if that betrayal wasn't just a pesky, he's trying to make out with both people thing, but actually that she is in on the manipulations that Dane is doing to Jude, and that her ambition is to become queen, because that's so much more ambitious than just, oh, I want to get married. Like, that she wants to become queen, that she would finally have something that she can hold over her sister, that she will finally have something that she can hold over Cardan, who has made her sister's life miserable, right? Because you could do it both ways. You could either do it that she's doing it to be like, just that she wants some power over the other princes, that she's friends with the princesses and therefore she's like in on that circle or whatever, or you just lean into the fact that she's a manipulative bitch and Dane is a manipulative arsehole and therefore they'd be perfect together. Just think about it for a second and tell me it's not a good idea. Like, I just think narratively it would be really interesting to see. Not every love story has to end happily, and not every ship, I mean, some ships sink for a reason. So anyway, yes, that's my list of ships that won't sail without me, let's be honest. Let me know which one of these you found most problematic in the comments down below. Don't forget that I'm also releasing my own YA rom-com at the beginning of next month, so if you want to support me, my content, or you're just interested in reading some YA romances where the ships they'll sell themselves. These ones do sell themselves. Check those out down below. And other than that, have a nice day.